The Kraxon hunters had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing things that, by all reasonable measures, should have been unkillable. Their society measured status not by wealth or political power, but by the size of whatever impossibly large space-dwelling creature they'd managed to bring down. Their halls of glory were decorated not with paintings or sculptures, but with chunks of crystallized stellar flesh and preserved neural clusters the size of small moons. They were, to put it mildly, rather proud of themselves. So when a human showed up at their most prestigious hunting lodge, wearing what appeared to be a thrift store spacesuit and carrying a datapad full of research papers about space-dwelling megafauna, the resulting cultural shock nearly caused a minor gravitational disturbance. The lodge itself was a testament to excessive trophy collection, a massive space station carved from the vertebrae of various cosmic entities, each section glowing with the residual energy of creatures that had once drifted between stars like living constellations. The walls pulsed with bioluminescence, each trophy competing to outshine its neighbors in a display that would have given an interior decorator an existential crisis. "You want to study them?" The Grand Hunter's translucent appendages rippled with what might have been confusion or possibly indigestion. It was always hard to tell with beings composed primarily of crystalline quantum structures. The human, adjusting their patched-up environment suit with the casual air of someone who had picked it up at a garage sale, nodded enthusiastically. "Well, yes, your species has the most extensive experience with cosmic megafauna in the known galaxy, but all your records focus on killing techniques. Nobody's ever done a proper ecological study." The assembled hunters, their ceremonial armor gleaming with the absorbed essence of 1,000 kills, exchanged what passed for glances among their species. Several of them had to recalibrate their reality perception filters just to process the concept. "These are monsters," one of the younger hunters explained, their voice crystals vibrating with the patronizing tone of someone explaining to a child why they shouldn't try to pet a supernova. "They destroy solar systems. They consume stellar matter. They are not subjects for your research papers." The human pulled up a holographic display showing various charts and graphs. "But have you seen these migration patterns? They're following specific stellar currents, possibly for breeding purposes. And these energy signatures during their feeding cycles, there's evidence of quantum selectivity in their consumption habits. They're not just mindlessly eating stars, they're cultivating specific elements." The Grand Hunter's crystalline form shifted through several colors not visible to human eyes, finally settling on a shade that roughly translated to bureaucratic distress. "We have a hunt planned for the next solar cycle," they announced, clearly hoping to redirect the conversation to more comfortable territory. "A Stellar Behemoth has been spotted in the Carina Nebula cluster. We will destroy it before it can threaten populated systems." "Perfect!" The human's enthusiasm caused several nearby quantum sensors to malfunction. "I can gather observational data before the hunt. Maybe even set up some non-invasive monitoring devices to track its behavioral patterns." The hunting lodge's AI, which had been quietly observing this exchange, began composing what it assumed would be its final update log. In its centuries of service, it had never encountered a situation quite like this. A soft, squishy creature treating the galaxy's most feared predators like subjects for a nature documentary. The human was already pulling more equipment from their battered backpack, tools that looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts and optimism. "I've modified these sensors to work in quantum flux conditions. They shouldn't interfere with your hunting methods at all, though I do have some questions about your traditional techniques. Have you ever considered that the cellular disruption caused by quantum lances might be affecting their higher cognitive functions?" A Mladshi hunter, their armor still showing scars from their first kill, leaned toward their superior. Is this some sort of elaborate joke? Did the void dancers put them up to this? The human continued, either oblivious to or simply ignoring the increasing discomfort around them. Also, I've been analyzing the crystallized remnants in your trophy hall. The neural patterns suggest complex social structures. These creatures might have family groups, maybe even cultural transmission of knowledge. The Grand Hunter's form briefly destabilized, their quantum matrix struggling to process this unprecedented situation. Here they were, the galaxy's most accomplished killers of unkillable things, being lectured about the family lives of their prey by a creature whose species had barely figured out how to leave their own solar system without blowing themselves up. You will. The Grand Hunter paused, their translation crystals working overtime. Accompany us on the hunt, as an observer. They added quickly, seeing the human's expression brighten. A distant observer, very distant. The human was already setting up what appeared to be a portable research station, complete with monitors held together with what several hunters suspected might actually be adhesive tape. This is amazing. I've been developing a theory about their communication methods. They might be using quantum entanglement for long-distance social bonding. The implications for our understanding of cosmic ecology are incredible. The hunting lodge's AI, deciding that this situation required special notation, created a new category in its archives. Humans, warning, will attempt to science everything. As preparations for the hunt began, the human darted around the lodge, scanning everything in sight and asking questions that made several senior hunters question their entire career choices. They were particularly interested in the preserved neural clusters, muttering about synaptic complexity and quantum consciousness patterns, while taking readings with devices that looked like they might have been assembled during a particularly ambitious crafting session. The Grand Hunter, watching this whirlwind of scientific enthusiasm bounce around their sacred hunting ground, felt something they hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. Their species had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing cosmic monsters, and here was this tiny being suggesting that perhaps they should have been taking notes instead. The hunt leaves in 12 cycles, they announced, partly to restore some sense of normalcy to the proceedings. We track a Class 5 Stellar Behemoth, large enough to consume binary star systems. It has already destroyed 3 uninhabited solar systems in the Carina cluster. The human looked up from their readings, eyes bright with what the hunters were beginning to recognize as the dangerous light of scientific curiosity. Destroyed or transformed? Because these energy signatures suggest a pattern of systematic element transmutation that could actually be beneficial for long-term stellar stability in the region. Several hunters briefly considered the possibility that their universal translators had developed a sense of humor and were playing an elaborate prank on them. But no, the human was entirely serious, treating their greatest prey as some sort of cosmic gardening service. As the final preparations were made, the human set up their observation equipment with the kind of cheerful determination that suggested they either didn't understand or simply chose to ignore the concept of mortal danger. Their ancient and patchwork environment suit had been supplemented with several pieces of hunting lodge safety gear, making them look like someone had attempted to upgrade a bicycle with parts from a quantum battle cruiser. The Grand Hunter, watching their most elite hunting party try to process the presence of this enthusiastic researcher, made a mental note to update their species' first contact protocols. Clearly, they hadn't accounted for the possibility of encountering beings who would look at the galaxy's most terrifying creatures and think, "Oh, what fascinating research subjects." The hunting lodge's AI, meanwhile, had begun composing what it considered to be its masterwork, a comprehensive guide to human scientific enthusiasm and why it should probably be classified as a natural disaster. The hunt would begin soon, and with it, perhaps, a lesson that the proud Kraxon hunters never expected to learn. That sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't the monster you're hunting, but the tiny creature taking notes about it. The hunting fleet emerged from quantum space like a collection of crystalline predators, each ship gleaming with the absorbed energies of previous kills. To call them ships would be like calling a supernova a warm day, technically accurate but missing several orders of magnitude of significance. Each vessel was a work of art dedicated to the proposition that anything in the universe, no matter how large or cosmically significant, could be turned into a trophy with sufficient application of advanced technology and stubborn determination. The human, stationed aboard the Grand Hunter's flagship, had somehow managed to turn their observation post into what looked like a cross between a research laboratory and a teenager's bedroom. Equipment of dubious origin and even more dubious structural integrity covered every surface, held together by what appeared to be equal parts advanced technology and blind optimism. "Are those sticky notes?" one of the elite hunters asked, their crystalline form vibrating with what might have been confusion or possibly allergies to primitive organizational methods. "Analog backup systems," the human replied cheerfully, adding another fluorescent yellow note to a collection that was starting to resemble a paper-based nervous breakdown. Never know when quantum fluctuations might affect digital systems. The Grand Hunter, who had spent the journey attempting to understand how their most prestigious hunting expedition had somehow turned into a scientific field trip, watched as their target came into view on the main display. The Stellar Behemoth was, to put it mildly, big. The kind of big that made regular big feel small. The kind of big that made astronomers need to invent new mathematical notation just to avoid running out of zeros. It drifted through the void like a living constellation, its body a twisted mass of dark matter and crystallized stellar material that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, none of which appeared to be particularly concerned with the conventional laws of physics. "Beautiful," the human exclaimed, their instruments already whirring and beeping in what seemed to be scientific ecstasy. "Look at those quantum field fluctuations. The creature must be using dark matter manipulation for propulsion. Oh, and those energy signatures. It's not just consuming stellar material, it's processing it through some sort of biological quantum reactor." The hunting party, whose entire cultural identity was based on killing these things, found themselves experiencing an emotion their species hadn't evolved to handle: awkwardness. "We approach from the stellar wind," the Grand Hunter announced, trying to redirect attention to the actual purpose of their expedition. "The quantum lances will target its neural clusters, while the phase disruptors—" "Wait!" The human's voice carried the particular urgency of someone who had just discovered something either absolutely fascinating or potentially catastrophic. "These readings, there's a pattern in its quantum field emissions. It's not random, it's communicating." Several hunters performed the crystalline equivalent of rolling their eyes, a process that involved complex quantum state changes and a small risk of accidentally creating a temporary parallel universe. "They always emit quantum noise before we kill them," one veteran hunter explained, their tone suggesting they were talking to a particularly dense nebula. "It's just death throes." The human was practically bouncing with excitement, their sticky notes fluttering like anxious butterflies. No, look at the frequency pattern. It's too ordered, too complex. Here, let me show you the spectral analysis." What followed was a rapid-fire explanation involving quantum mechanics, information theory, and several concepts that made the hunting lodge's AI consider filing for conscious entity workers' compensation. The human's hands flew over their instruments, producing graphs and charts that looked like someone had taught mathematics to paint abstract art. "See? These patterns here? They match similar emissions from other regions of space. They're not just communicating, they're part of a network A quantum-entangled social network spread across the galaxy. The Grand Hunter's form shifted through several colors, not usually visible in this dimension. You suggest these monsters are posting status updates. More like sharing complex astronomical data and coordinating stellar engineering projects, the human replied, adding another sticky note to what was now beginning to look like a conspiracy theorist's evidence wall. Look at the correlation between their movements and the distribution of heavy elements in this sector. They're not destroying solar systems, they're maintaining them. The hunting fleet hung in space, their quantum lances powered up but not firing, as the implications of this began to sink in. Generations of hunters had built their entire culture around killing these creatures, and now this tiny being, with their improvised equipment and excessive enthusiasm for note-taking, was suggesting that they might have been assassinating cosmic maintenance workers. The behemoth, apparently unaware of its role in this cultural crisis, continued its majestic drift through space, occasionally emitting bursts of quantum information that the human frantically recorded while muttering about revolutionary paradigm shifts and groundbreaking publications. But they consumed 3 solar systems in this sector, protested a younger hunter, their armor still showing the eager shine of someone who hadn't yet started questioning their life choices. The human's fingers flew over their instruments. Did they? Look at these stellar remnants. The elemental distribution, the quantum state changes. They didn't destroy those systems. They reconstructed them. These creatures are cosmic engineers, maintaining the galaxy's stellar life cycle. The hunting lodge's AI, which had been quietly observing all of this, began composing a new entry. Day 47 of the human incident. Entire species experiencing existential crisis due to excessive application of scientific method. Request update to first contact protocols to include warning about humans' ability to accidentally overthrow entire cultural paradigms through enthusiastic research. The behemoth chose this moment to emit a particularly complex series of quantum signals, causing the human's equipment to erupt in a chorus of excited beeping and several sticky notes to achieve escape velocity. "Oh, this is amazing!" The human's voice had reached a pitch usually associated with quantum string vibrations. It's receiving responses from at least 3 others in nearby sectors. They're coordinating something. Hold on. Let me adjust the quantum field sensors. The Grand Hunter, whose species had evolved to face any threat with unwavering courage, found themselves facing something far more challenging than mere danger. The possibility that they had been wrong. For millennia, their people had prided themselves on being the galaxy's ultimate predators, the ones who hunted the unhuntable. Now they were faced with the possibility that they had actually been interfering with essential cosmic maintenance work. There, the human pointed to a new display, which showed what appeared to be a complex network of quantum connections spanning several spiral arms of the galaxy. They're not just individual creatures, they're part of an interconnected system that helps maintain stellar stability across entire regions of space. We're not looking at monsters, we're looking at cosmic conservationists. The hunting fleet's weapons remained charged but unfired, their crystalline forms reflecting the light of nearby stars as they processed this paradigm shift. Generations of hunters had decorated their halls with trophies from these beings, never once considering that they might be killing the galaxy's maintenance staff. The human, meanwhile, had begun drafting what appeared to be both a research paper and a conservation proposal, their enthusiasm apparently unaffected by the existential crisis they had inadvertently triggered among their hosts. "Think about it," they continued, adding yet another layer to their sticky note constellation. Why would creatures capable of manipulating dark matter and quantum fields need to destroy solar systems for sustenance? They're not destroying anything. They're managing the galaxy's stellar life cycle. Those destroyed systems, they're being restructured to prevent future instabilities that could affect populated worlds. The Grand Hunter's form shifted through several quantum states before settling on one that roughly translated to bureaucratic acceptance of inevitable cultural upheaval. "You mean to tell us," they said slowly, their translation crystals working overtime to process the concept, "that our most prestigious hunting trophies are actually more like maintenance reports? More like certificates of interference with essential cosmic infrastructure," the human replied cheerfully, apparently immune to the weight of thousands of years of cultural tradition being upended by their research. "But look at the bright side. You've got the most extensive collection of data on their work in the galaxy. With proper analysis, we could learn so much about stellar engineering and quantum ecology." The hunting lodge's AI, which had been maintaining records of hunts for centuries, began reorganizing its archives under a new classification: accidental documentation of cosmic infrastructure maintenance by well-meaning but confused hunters. As if to punctuate this revelation, the behemoth emitted another complex series of quantum signals, this time causing patterns of light to dance across its massive form in what the human excitedly described as coordinated quantum state manipulation for stellar matter processing. The hunting fleet hung in space, their weapons still charged, but their purpose now uncertain, as they watched what they had always seen as a monster going about its business of apparently keeping the galaxy running smoothly. "You know," the human said, adding what had to be their 100th sticky note to their observation wall, "this could be the beginning of a whole new field of study. Instead of hunting them, we could be learning from them. Imagine the applications for stellar engineering, quantum communication, dark matter manipulation." The Grand Hunter, looking at their fleet of ships designed for killing cosmic beings that were apparently just trying to do their jobs, made a mental note to update their species' educational curriculum. Clearly, they needed to add a course on verification of monster status before attempting to hunt things that control stellar stability. The hunt was rapidly transforming into something entirely different, perhaps the galaxy's first impromptu conference on cosmic infrastructure maintenance, hosted by creatures who had spent millennia accidentally interfering with it. The human, naturally, couldn't have been happier about this development. They were already talking about research grants, peer review processes, and something called conference proceedings, with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for actual hunting among the Kraxon. As the fleet prepared to make first peaceful contact with their former prey, the hunting lodge's AI added one final note to its archives. Conclusion: in the presence of human scientific curiosity, even the most established truths may require sticky notes. As the hunting fleet maintained its position at what their combat computers insisted was a safe distance, though the human kept muttering about optimal observation range being much closer, something unprecedented occurred. The Stellar Behemoth, apparently aware of its audience, began what could only be described as a performance. Its vast form shifted through quantum states with deliberate precision, creating cascading waves of dark matter that rippled through space-time like auroras in a cosmic ocean. The display was beautiful enough to make several hardened hunters question their life choices, their crystalline forms resonating with frequencies usually reserved for religious experiences. "Oh! Oh!" The human's voice carried the particular tone of someone watching their wildest theories being proven right in real time. "It's not just showing off, it's demonstrating. Look at these energy signatures." The Grand Hunter, whose species had evolved to process complex quantum phenomena, found themselves struggling to follow the rapid-fire analysis erupting from the human's observation post. The wall of sticky notes had now achieved what several physicists would later classify as critical organizational mass. "See these patterns?" The human's fingers danced across their instruments, which were producing data faster than their makeshift mounting systems could handle. It's showing us how it processes stellar matter. This isn't just maintenance, it's artistry. The Behemoth's demonstration continued, its movements creating complex interactions between dark matter and normal space that made several of the fleet's physics engines need to lie down for a moment. It was manipulating fundamental forces with the casual expertise of a master chef working with favorite ingredients. Look here. The human pointed to a particularly complex series of readings. It's not just moving through space, it's actively restructuring quantum fields to optimize stellar dynamics. These creatures aren't just maintaining the galaxy, they're fine-tuning it. The hunting lodge's AI, which had been dutifully recording everything, began creating a new classification system for what it was observing. Its previous categories of things to kill and things that got away were proving inadequate for things that apparently keep the universe running properly. The Behemoth's next action caused even the human to briefly stop talking, which several hunters noted as yet another unprecedented event. It began generating what appeared to be miniature stellar formations, tiny points of light that coalesced into perfectly formed star systems, complete with elegant orbital patterns and precisely balanced energy distributions. "It's teaching us," the human whispered, their voice carrying the kind of awe usually reserved for discovering coffee in an unexpected place. "This is a demonstration of stellar engineering principles. It's showing us how it works." The Grand Hunter's form shifted through several quantum states as they processed this information. "You mean to tell me that this creature, which we have hunted for generations, is now conducting what amounts to a lecture on cosmic maintenance? More like a masterclass in stellar dynamics and quantum engineering," the human replied, adding several new sticky notes in what appeared to be multiple colors previously unknown to physics. "Look at the precision in these demonstrations. Each miniature system is a perfect example of stellar life cycle management." The hunting fleet's weapons, still charged but increasingly feeling more like embarrassing social gaffes than tools of war, hummed quietly in the background as the Behemoth continued its impromptu seminar on advanced cosmic engineering. "Notice how it's manipulating dark matter flows to stabilize gravitational fields," the human explained, their equipment now producing so much data that several devices had begun outsourcing processing to their sticky notes. "This explains those destroyed systems we discussed earlier. They weren't destroyed at all. They were being upgraded." A veteran hunter, their armor bearing the marks of dozens of successful hunts, made a sound that their species usually reserved for discovering they had been eating with the ceremonial appendage instead of the dining one. "Are you suggesting that we have spent millennia interrupting essential infrastructure maintenance?" "Well," the human replied, demonstrating the particular diplomatic skill of someone explaining to a cat that the red dot isn't real, "think of it as accidentally documenting previously unknown cosmic processes. Your hunting records are actually an incredible data set on stellar engineering techniques." The Behemoth, perhaps sensing the existential crisis it had triggered among its would-be hunters, began a new demonstration. This one involved showing how it could prevent a star from going supernova by carefully adjusting its quantum structure, a process that made several physics textbooks in nearby systems spontaneously rewrite themselves. "Amazing!" The human's voice had achieved frequencies that made quantum particles feel self-conscious. "It's showing us how it prevents stellar catastrophes. These beings aren't just maintaining the galaxy, they're protecting it." The hunting lodge's AI, which had been maintaining records for longer than most species had been sentient, began composing what it considered to be its magnum opus, a comprehensive history of how we mistook cosmic infrastructure workers for monsters, a study in galactic misunderstandings and the importance of asking questions before shooting. The Behemoth's next demonstration caused several hunters to question not just their career choices, but their entire species' developmental path. It showed, with the patience of a teacher dealing with particularly dense students, how it and its kind maintained a vast network of quantum-entangled connections across the galaxy, coordinating their efforts to keep countless star systems stable and habitable. Look at this communication network. The human was now adding sticky notes to their sticky notes, creating what mathematicians would later classify as a recursive organizational crisis. They're not just working independently, they're part of a galactic-scale maintenance system. Every movement, every stellar interaction is coordinated across light years. The Grand Hunter, watching their species' most feared prey demonstrate advanced stellar engineering principles with the casual expertise of someone who had been doing it for billions of years, made a mental note to update their cultural archives. From hunters to students, a species' journey from shooting things to studying them had a nice ring to it. But what about the destroyed systems? Asked a younger hunter, their crystalline form showing the particular vibration pattern of someone desperately trying to maintain their worldview in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. The human's response came with the special enthusiasm of someone who had just been waiting for this question. "Watch this part of the demonstration carefully," they said, pointing to where the behemoth was creating another miniature stellar system. "See how it's showing the complete stellar life cycle. What we interpreted as destruction was actually careful dismantling and reconstruction. They're cosmic recyclers." The demonstration showed, with the kind of patience usually reserved for teaching quantum physics to particularly stubborn rocks, how the behemoths carefully deconstructed dying star systems, redistributed their materials, and used them to stabilize or create new ones. It was like watching a master gardener prune and replant on a cosmic scale. "They're not destroying anything," the human continued, their sticky note wall now achieving what some theorized might be sentience. "They're maintaining the galaxy's stellar life cycle. Those systems we thought they destroyed, they were already dying. The behemoths prevented their deaths from affecting neighboring systems and recycled their materials for new formation processes." The hunting fleet hung in space, their weapons systems feeling increasingly like bringing a quantum lance to an astronomy lecture. The behemoth continued its demonstration, showing how it could detect instabilities in stellar cores centuries before they became dangerous, and how it could adjust quantum fields to prevent everything from solar flares to gravitational anomalies. This is revolutionary. The human's excitement had reached levels that made several nearby quantum particles consider filing for emotional distress compensation. They're not just maintaining current systems, they're actively improving them. Every interaction, every adjustment makes the galaxy more stable, more efficient. The Grand Hunter, watching their entire species' cultural identity undergo rapid, unscheduled reconstruction, made what might have been the most important decision in their civilization's history. With a gesture that rippled through quantum fields, they ordered all weapons powered down. The hunting lodge's AI noted this moment with particular care, marking it as the point where we officially transitioned from trying to kill things to trying to learn from them. Sticky notes, optional, but recommended. The behemoth, apparently appreciating this gesture, began what the human excitedly described as the advanced portion of the lecture. It started demonstrating principles of quantum engineering that made several of the fleet's science officers need to sit down and breathe into paper bags, which was particularly impressive given that their species didn't actually breathe. "Look at these techniques." The human's voice carried the special kind of excitement usually reserved for finding extra fries at the bottom of the bag. They're not just manipulating existing quantum fields, they're creating new ones. The implications for physics, for engineering, for our understanding of the universe itself. Several hunters found themselves unconsciously taking notes, their crystalline forms automatically recording data patterns in a way they usually reserved for tracking prey. Except now, Instead of learning how to kill these magnificent beings, they were learning how to understand them. The Grand Hunter, watching their most elite hunting party transform into what amounted to an impromptu advanced physics study group, felt something their species rarely experienced: hope. Not the hope of a successful hunt, but the hope of understanding something new, something vast, something that could change everything. "We need to establish proper communication protocols," the human was saying, their sticky note wall now requiring its own gravitational field calculations. "Think about what we could learn. These beings have been maintaining stellar stability for possibly billions of years. Their understanding of cosmic processes, quantum mechanics, dark matter manipulation." The behemoth, perhaps sensing the paradigm shift it had initiated, concluded its demonstration with what could only be described as a flourish. It created a miniature replica of the entire sector, showing how its kind worked together to maintain the complex dance of gravity, energy, and matter that kept the galaxy functioning. The hunting lodge's AI, watching all of this unfold, added a new primary directive to its core programming. Priority 1. Facilitate the transition from hunting lodge to research institution without letting the human's sticky note collection achieve spontaneous revolution. As the fleet prepared to return home, not with trophies of conquest, but with terabytes of scientific data and what would later be classified as enough sticky notes to wallpaper a small moon, the human was already talking about research proposals, academic conferences, and something they called peer review. The Grand Hunter, looking at their weapon systems that now seemed about as sophisticated as trying to understand quantum mechanics by hitting it with a stick, made one final observation. "Perhaps," they said, their form resonating with newfound wisdom, "the greatest hunt of all is the hunt for understanding." The human's response was to add another sticky note to their wall, this one reading, "Day 1 of Galactic Infrastructure Studies. Former hunters make excellent graduate students." The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it apparently expressed it through quantum physics lectures delivered by beings that had once been mistaken for monsters. The hunting lodge transformed overnight into the Institute for Advanced Cosmic Infrastructure Studies. Trophy halls became research archives, and quantum lances were repurposed into scientific instruments. The human's sticky note collection achieved legendary status, requiring its own containment field. Former hunters embraced their new roles as researchers, establishing communication networks with behemoths across the galaxy. The creatures, far from being monsters, proved eager teachers of cosmic engineering. The Grand Hunter's final declaration summed it up perfectly. "We evolved from hunters of the unknown to students of the infinite." And somewhere in space, a behemoth continued its work, now accompanied by enthusiastic researchers armed with sticky notes and insatiable curiosity.